Hey Tim, thanks for reaching out. And let me just start by saying you've got a very, very clean golf swing. You do a lot of things incredibly well. And I had to look at this swing, several times to kind of pinpoint exactly what the issues are. And so my goal in this online lesson is to kind of show you what's causing the thin shots, the heel shots, the kind of the block shots out to the right. And the issue that you have is very unique, and I haven't seen very many players of your caliber that have this move. So I'm going to try to shed some light on that. So first thing, I want to talk about the good things I see in your swing. Your arm structure, wrist structure, hand path, club face alignments. I mean, your backswing is literally kind of the model, honestly. This is I spend most of my time all day long trying to get players to move this way in the backswing. So just a couple things that I love that I'll point out here is I love how the knees change flex and the trail leg lengthens out. I love how the left knee increases its flex. I love how you've turned and rotated the pelvis on sort of a tilted angle here. I love how the spine is rotating essentially around that same inclination. The left arm plane is pretty close to matching the shoulder plane, if not slightly elevated to it. And you've got the club face in a beautiful position at the top. So there is not much to talk about in the backswing here other than please keep doing what you're doing in this backswing. Now, the issues in your swing stem basically in the change of direction and in what I would consider sort of mid-downswing phase. And we're going to take a look at both the combined down-the-line view and the face-on view here to try to pinpoint and make my point here. So the problem that I see is in the downswing, as your upper body is going back into flexion. The torso is going into flexion. So just for descriptive purposes, flexion of the torso would be bending the upper body in whatever direction your sternum is facing. So at the top of the backswing, it would be in that direction. Around impact or in the late downswing, it would be more towards the golf ball. At address, it's towards the golf ball. So again, flexion of the torso is in that direction or away from the direction of whichever direction your sternum is facing, okay? Now, what happens here is as that pelvis is flexing and as that upper torso is flexing in the downswing, we need to be matching up an equal amount of rotation of both the pelvis and the torso while we're adding that flexion in, okay? And in your case, you're actually adding flexion at a rate that is faster or greater than the rate that you are rotating. And what I mean by that is, let's look over here on the right on the face-on view. And I want you to notice how in this mid-downswing phase, how your sternum starts to move sort of down and back in this direction. In your upper back, the thoracic region starts to kind of round out. So right there, you can really kind of visibly see it. And when you get down here to sort of this last parallel position, both of your scapulas have sort of protracted down in this direction, sort of really rounding out the back, and it gives you sort of an overall downward pull, so to speak, on this grip. And that's accentuated because the pelvis is not rotating and extending out of the ground, out of this lead foot, fast enough, okay? So you're pulling down on the handle and flexing down on the torso at a rate that's greater than you rotating the pelvis and pushing out of the ground with the pelvis. So from down the line, it doesn't stand out that much on camera. But when you look at this face-on view here, and you look at this position that I've got you in, you can really kind of see it, especially if you compare it to, say, a swing like Rory McIlroy, for example. And just watch how in the downswing, so there's the flexion of the torso, but he's coupling that with a lot of rotation of the pelvis. You can see like where his belt buckle's pointed right now. And when we get down here in that same position as you are, if you'll notice how, because he's straightening and lengthening out his left side, there's very much kind of a straight line going up this left thigh to the left shoulder. And in your case, it's very much an angle. And so that just gives you an indicator. You can see how much more his pelvis at this point is, I mean, his belt buckle is literally pointing here. And there's a lot of force coming out of the ground at this moment with the lead foot. And I'll kind of play that for you. You can see the push up. You can see the stretch happening in the lead side of his body from about this phase, left arm parallel in the downswing. You can see him pushing up and stretching out as he's opening up that left side. And in your case, we don't see that. We see a bend over and a pull down with the hip staying very square at impact. And that's what very late in the downswing is causing your hand path to move out toward the ball. It's the heel contact, the thins. The bottom of the swing arc is moving back here because that upper body is moving in early transition, being pulled down back behind the golf ball. Okay? So this is a pretty simple fix. I mean, honestly, all we've got to do is activate more rotation. So what I want you to pay attention to here is, and I'm going to kind of use Snead as a model here, because I think he's got the greatest lower body action of all time. I want you to watch how his left knee swivels internally on the backswing, and then it's kind of a trigger for him in transition in the downswing. And notice how it swivels externally. And the point I want you to make is, or notice is, when the left arm is parallel to the ground, how far outside his left ankle his left knee is. And about right there. So you can see the left knee is outside the left ankle considerably this early in the backswing. And in your case, not so much. So I'd like to see that femur already rotated by this point, kind of more like that, if you will. And so we can get that left knee out of the way. It's going to essentially create some freedom for that left hip and pelvis to kind of continue to open up. And then we can spike a big ground reaction force up and back out of the ground. We can spike a big push up out of the ground there. So you are pushing up, but the problem is you don't get open enough before you push up out of the ground. Okay? And so that's what I want us to work on. And how I want you to do that is I want you to essentially do a drill to where you put an alignment rod through your belt loops. Okay? So it'll stick out about 90% on the front side. We don't want very much sticking out over here on this side of your belt loops, okay? And then I want you to basically do a 45-degree angle from the golf ball through your left heel. So if there's 90, so 45's about like that, somewhere in that ballpark. I want you to place an alignment rod in the ground back behind you on that 45, so that the stick through your belt loops would essentially touch the stick that's in the ground back behind you if you rotated your pelvis about 45 degrees open, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to do rehearsals from the top, and we're going to really initiate this downswing by two things. A, we're going to move pressure toward the lead foot. And then B, in an effort to move that pressure toward the lead foot, we're going to swivel this left knee in kind of a counterclockwise direction, looking down at your left foot. We're going to swivel it out of the way. We're going to move pressure to our left side, and that's going to facilitate a little bit more rotation of this pelvis. And our goal is to get the stick through our belt loops to kind of crash into, it's probably going to hit the top portion of the stick, but we want it to get it to crash into that alignment rod before impact. And I think I had an example of that. Maybe not. Nope, I don't have one on here. I thought I had one. But we're going to try to get that alignment rod before you get to impact, you know, to be touching, at this point, to be touching the stick over here. Okay? So I want us to work that drill. So we'll start out doing some slow-mos, just kind of feeling it and rehearsing it. And then we'll go ahead and hit shots, and we'll work our way up to essentially full speed. And we're going to get the pelvis opening just a little bit sooner. Now, what you're going to find is that opening phase is happening very early in the downswing. So as that pelvis, lead side of that pelvis is opening up, you're going to find it a lot more difficult to just pull the arms down and bend the chest over in this direction. That essentially won't happen anymore, because there's going to be so much emphasis on like getting open and getting around the corner, making room for that big pushback up and out of the ground. Okay? So I hope this makes sense to you, and this is exactly the direction I would go with your swing if I had you on my lesson tee. So feel free to shoot me a message, an email, if you have any questions.